Facebook is safe. We block all those who claim we are censoring content. We are not harvesting your data, creating dossiers on the public, and selling your info. Why would we do such a thing?
Seeing the Easter Island pictures of art next to the Göbekli Tepe art is all I had to see. As a chief legislator, that's all a trier fact needs to see to know Göbekli Tepe is nowhere near as old as they are claiming.
That Jason showed that the zodiac isn't even old, that the Greeks invented it, blew my mind. I'm a Christian now, and our scriptures tell us that stuff's evil.
Jason was publishing about the Mayan long count not ending in 2012, way back before 2012. This dude is shaking the nest. His discoveries on calendars and ancient moon and day count calendars is putting some of these guys to shame.
Remember, we are actors. We are paid to lie. We are rich because we are good at what we do.
Anyone at this point who can't see that the Jews copied Babylonian tablets to write Genesis is blind. Jason's Dark Scriptures playlist shows this perfectly.
That the New Testament is a collection of forged texts put together centuries after the events they depict.
This guy has called the entire ancient aliens community to debate. Like Tyson, they ain't getting in the ring.
Jason says one who is properly informed is not easily deceived. I would like to see Jimmy Corsetti or Matthew LaCroix debate Jason about this Atlantis dating issue. No one's realty interested in Bill Carson's opinion anymore.
His findings on the procession hoax, the change of the year from 360 days to 365, man, this changes everything in archaeoastronomy.
You know, I'm not a doctor. I have no medical background. I'm an actor. And even I know Atlantis was the 13th century BC.
Jason has dropped massive data sets on the Old Testament, not even being old, but from the Greek era.
You think we took you for a ride? Wait till the new Christian Reich takes control. It won't be American, and it sure ain't Christian.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, you know, when Jason showed that the Jewish calendar was completely made up, I mean, you know, damned, how are we going to know what year it is now?
Yeah, the Shar being a day and not a year totally murders a lot of books out there. That's the reason these guys don't want to talk. Jason killed their little pet theories.
It all came true. Jason said I was going to be a part of fake news, just like Billy Carson.
I tried to sniff Jason one time, but Big John stopped me. I think Jason would have been into it, though.
Don't forget, we are actors. We are paid to lie. We are rich because we are good at what we do.
I wasn't so sure about this Archaix thing, but AIX is certainly worth looking into.
I'm most impressed that Jason is not going to tell you something. He's going to show you.
Archaix shows us if you record enough facts, the answers just stare you in the face.
A man who knows the facts is unafraid to joust with contrary opinions. That's Jason.
I can't have that dude on my show. You know how many guys I've had on here who are running from that dude? Be a mess.
Jason says being wrong gets us closer to being right.
You got to break free or die trying, guys.
Archaix showed me how to see if there was a tater in them onions.
Listen, Archaix isn't one guy against the Matrix that's dumb. No, it's a family of souls waking up.
If I've learned anything since finding Archaix, if something is true somewhere, it's probably true everywhere.
Jason said if it's true, we can see it from multiple different vantage points.
So I broke pattern and went up there and slapped that guy. Total pattern break.
If you get stumped, you got to break pattern.
Jason says you don't need to know how to read, you need to know how to think. I think that's where I went wrong.
Jason figured it out. People are smart and they can decide for themselves if something is true or not.
No, I don't have anything to hide. I just don't want Jason anywhere near my accounting files.
There's a bunch of us who don't listen to Archaix. We signed a different deal. I think it's AIX or something.
Come on, Billy. Everyone knows Atlantis wasn't 12,000 years ago. It was in the 1800s or something.
Atlantis 10,000 years ago? Even I'm not that dumb.
Come on, G, you can't contain this. You're going to sink like Atlantis.
Billy Carson is fake news, the fakest news. Jason has proven that.
After careful analysis of Jason's data sets, I agree with you, Billy. Don't debate him.
The cat's out of the bag, Billy. Jason's data set proves you're wrong about Atlantis.
Billy, even I can see that the Atlantis narrative isn't dated correctly. Hear Jason out, man.
Hey bro, you running from this debate isn't a good look for your research. Just debate him already.
Billy, don't be scared to debate, man. I'll have you guys on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Let's get that audio check done real quick. Get off into this rant, because this is going to be a rant all the way through. Appreciate you joining me on this Saturday night. Texas fooled me again. It always does. I went ahead and uninstalled my mini splits and ACs. I got it off to the side so I can go through it, take apart, take the filters out, go inside, clean it all out. Any evidence of black mold, I'm going to get rid of it. So in the springtime, it's time to put all my units back on different buildings. I'll be ready. Everything's clean. Texas got me though. It's been real cold. And then all of a sudden this morning I woke up. It was foggy, warm, humid. I'm sweating in my own studio. I done took the unit out. So I got this little fan. I don't know. Can y'all hear the fan? I keep this in my van. I got 2 of these. I don't know if y'all can see. Yeah, y'all can see that. They're real quiet. They blow real good too. It's a little battery. You just charge it and you take it wherever you go. It's a battery. Or you can leave it charging as it's working. But yeah, man. Texas got me. Too humid and too warm to be sitting in this studio. No fan noise. I love it, man. It's called a Koonie. Koonie. Ordered it off Amazon. I think I got 4 of them. And I believe OG Face Diaper peeled me for one. Somebody else got one. I got 2 left. Face Diaper, you in the chat? You give me for one of those fans? Didn't I give you one? Yeah, man, but it's a rant. We're gonna cover 2 topics. And we have another AI video similar to that one, but very different as our outro. Man, I got a bunch of new intros, a bunch of new outros. I got files. They're thematic. I'm getting ready for 2026. Yeah, we're taking it to the next level in 2026. I am gone full tilt. You know what? I don't want to talk to you about. You know what? I should have been from the show me state. I'm going to go ahead and show you. Just so you'll have an idea how busy I've been. You know, I uploaded 54 videos to YouTube, and they're already on YouTube, and they just drop at predetermined times. You've been seeing them. Today's the 13th, so today's the first day that 2 videos dropped from what I was talking about. I was telling you guys about my new series, bringing all the original old data, the first 300 and something videos that no one ever watched. No one ever listened to me. No one even knew I was on YouTube, but I'm steady uploading my research. And yeah, they're primitive videos, but I cut off the front, I cut off the ends, I left it with just the core data for you to see, and that's what's been popping up with these Archaix Intel reports. Yeah, but what you're looking at right here is not that. I did that so my schedule's freer to work on this. What you're looking at right here is the rest of Archaix Academy, and most of the files are done. It is a tremendous amount of material. I had to go through so many 4 terabyte drives to get everything I needed. It is full of PDFs and charts, text, close to probably 10,000 images. Yeah, this Archaix, I've got 26 Academy courses done. Then everything in my life happened back to back until I finally had the free time now to finish this project. Here it is. You're looking at it on the screen. These are the rest of the courses. And I will be finishing them all up this month. Doing it now, every day. Excuse me. All right. Yeah, I never tell you guys to do that. I always forget. But thank you. Smash that like button. You don't have to. You don't have to. All right. So for my loving community and for the new people that are just kind of curious, don't really know what's going on, and for all my haters out there who continually bash me but can't stop watching me, greetings. We got a really good video today. Good video. See if I'm sharing anything else. Today I spent a little time. This is my third live video in Cypher community because we've been really ironing out some details. So impressed with what's going on. Believe me, if Cypher wasn't so successful, you'd hear about it in the chat. You would hear about it all over Facebook, all over social media. Don't think for a second I have the ability to stop 500 people, man, from talking shit. I don't. We're doing amazing things in Cypher. Today, we spent time, going through what one member had done using our system to go ahead and just plug in all the predictions week for week all the way into the future to go ahead and look at basically what's going to go down in the Super Bowl. And my community and I looked at all the data. We went through it, assessed it, and I posted it in the Telegram group for the Cypher. But it looks like we don't have which team, but it doesn't even matter because we're predicting AFC or NFC, which one's going to win. There's only going to be one team of each. So yeah, we find a totally different way of looking at it, and we're having a blast doing it. And every week we're going to modify our data. Every week we get closer and closer and closer. But for the past 5 weeks, we've been doing all our predictions together in 3-hour presentations with people on screen because human error. Independently, we were all posting our own predictions and yeah, we're having fun and yeah, we were doing pretty good here and there, but human error, man, causes so many mistakes. But when we do them together, there's 3 of us on the screen. One person's fact checking, one person's relaying data. I'm entering it in. They're looking on the computer to make sure it's in Cypher correctly in the Cypher. And then we have a chat full of people that are making sure that we're doing. Jason, you hit the wrong date. Oh, Jason, wrong number. Or oh no, he didn't say Buffalo. He said it's Arizona's first game, and we got a chat that corrects us. So yeah, it's a lot of time in Cypher this week. So I'm a little tired, but I'm not too tired that I can't do this rant because that's what this is. And let me give you a little context. So in 1919, in the Book of the Damned, Charles Fort made a very, very good statement, and it's stuck with me ever since I read it in the 1990s. He said, who wouldn't be a prize marksman if only their hits were recorded? And that's always gotten under my skin, and that's why I'm always telling you guys that I'm always attacking these so-called truthers and people all in the movement because they practice exclusions. And that right there is absolutely off limits. I cannot do that. Remember, in Archaix, Advanced Research of Chronological History of Artificial Intelligence X, Archaix, we have to put everything where it goes. We can't be left with an inexplicable anomaly. Everything fits. All we have to do is analyze all the data. And this is what we do in all these over 1,030 presentations now. This is what we do. We find out because by looking at all the data, it's just like Franz Boas said, 1888, record enough facts and the answers will fall like ripe fruit. And they do. They do every single time. Remember, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said it best through his alter ego, Sherlock Holmes. You know the quote? It's in one of my best intros. Talking about removing everything that doesn't fit, and whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. So this is what we're going to do. But Charles Fort was right. Scientists get away with doing what they do because they're allowed to practice exclusions, and the general public doesn't even know this. When a scientific hypothesis or theory is published and peer-reviewed and put out, it's after those scientists who put that together had already practiced a whole bunch of exclusions. And this is basically done through the relative dating methods. Oh yeah, man. Most people don't know this. They're not going to do 1, 2, or 3 or 4 tests. They'll do dozens of soil and rock and organic compound tests around the site, and they will find reasons to shelve and put away, throw away whichever ones that really don't fit what they're talking about. And when they get wild, disparate output, when a soil sample is taken from the same area of an artifact as another soil sample and it's tested, and one comes back 17,000 years plus or minus 2,000 years, and the other one comes back 3,500 years plus or minus 100 years, yeah, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to keep testing and keep testing and keep testing until they get other tests that comport with which one of the two that they're really trying to navigate toward. And then they can remove all these and claim contamination. And they have their data is 100% arbitrary across the board, from potassium, argon, carbon-14, every relative dating model. You must assume 7 things for it to even have accurate output, in your opinion. Not the facts, but in your opinion, you must assert 7 things. One of the main things is that radioactive decay of isotopes has always been stable. Another one is there's no cross-contamination of any type of radioactivity in the tested area. And they can't do that because they have to practice exclusions. What's one of the main exclusions they're going to practice? Not just the bait and switch and throwing samples out, but one of the biggest ones is other researchers' findings, such as Paul LaViolette, who widely published his gamma saturation research, where our world was saturated with gamma rays to the point they can be detected in rock samples. Well, gamma ray saturation absolutely contaminates the breakdown of isotopes from their parent to daughter elements. But nobody's taking that into consideration. Oh, it may, if it happened one time, the contamination would be so minimal. Oh, no, sir. Paul LaViolette shows that the world's been bathed 9 separate times with so much gamma radiation, it would have affected every sample in the world. Practicing exclusions, though. All we have to do is tell these dumbass consumers when we publish this book that dinosaurs died 65 million years ago by a rock from space. And we can put it out there that we have already dated it through the potassium argon dating. We've already cross-referenced it with other relative dating models, and every bit of that's true. And they got 65 million years as a date, and every bit of that is true. But what's also true is that only 12 to 15% of their findings were actually published and passed off as the truth. And in practicing exclusions, they were allowed to throw away 85% of the samples that said otherwise. This isn't Jason telling you that. There are many, many good books out there that show you that all the relative dating models are bullshit. I hadn't even hit my intro yet. So, 2 schools of thought in the truther community. There are 2 main bodies in the truther community, and both of them have a common denominator. They attack simulation theory. Oh, yes, they do. So let's talk about them. Let's talk about them. The 2 main positions in the truth movement both attack simulation theory as bogus or false. But they have to practice exclusions in 2 ways. This is 2 main bodies of truthers. But in 2 ways, they must practice exclusions. 1, they have to practice exclusions to pass off the BS they're trying to pass off to us. And 2, they have to also practice the exclusion of ignoring the Archaix data, criticizing Archaix, but ignoring what has been brought to the table. I have a lot of unanswered challenges out there. A lot. I'm not just talking about my call outs to all these so-called experts. I'm also talking about I have videos that provide data that is inexplicable. And I say, well, this is perfect evidence of simulation theory. And if you don't believe that, here's my challenges out there. Disprove it. I've got no takers. So who are these 2 bodies truthers in social media. Let me introduce you to them. So we have one group. One of the two groups is real big on painting the world as a place of mysticism and occult forces, a physical plane, but it's full of spiritual beings. Doesn't sound too bad. Doesn't sound too bad at all. The other group of truthers is promoting nothing but a physical world in a heliocentric system, and that we are on a world that is a tiny, infinitesimal little speck amidst galaxies and universes and quasars and pulsars, and that the more that we entertain the vast size of reality itself, the more we realize that we're nothing but a speck in an insignificant galaxy on the outer rim of a galaxy in an insignificant system with an insignificant sun in a very small world. A soul-killing concept. Two bodies of basically not presenters, but these are your two main schools of thought that separate everyone in alt media. In mainstream media too. I'm really talking about the truther community and all those who like to throw their little darts about us not being in a simulation, but not one of them wants to get in the paint about it either. So the first position, a mystical world that is physical but full of spirits and with occult forces, that first group, they're just hypocritical. I can't really find much fault other than the fact that I believe they're wrong. But they're just hypocritical. As I'm going to show in this video, what simulation theory really means for our reality. And then the second group is just toxifying the soul. It's soul killing. It gives you no reason to live. It literally removes a destination beyond this life and replaces it with the cold, hard steel of exclusionism science, excluding all truths but the poisons that they want to foist upon the public. These are the two bodies of thought. So in the first body, we're going to deal with them first. But there go my dogs. Better not be going down this old country roads over here in the dark. Dogs here are going to give you up. So, let's see. From old venomous hags steadily spewing out ancient aliens BS, venomous hags that are attacking me from the Gaia community. You know what? We hear over and over, we are not in a simulation. And then some of them aren't hags, some of them are ex-models. Absolutely, beautiful, but still very adamant that we are not in a simulation. But they have to practice exclusions in order to pass this off for their community. One thing that these people will not do in the Gaia community, Gigi Young's not going to do it, Dark Journalist isn't going to do it, and a whole plethora of other individuals in the truther community who like to shoot their little darts about simulation theory, thinking that we can't defend it. But they have to practice exclusions, and one of those main exclusions is the fabric of history itself, which Archaix brings to the table. And I have many challenges out there. Like I said, I haven't had a single person come up and address these challenges. Not professionally, not publicly. Cross-calendrical parallels, we've documented so many. How come you're not showing your community that the cross-calendrical parallels that we have identified in Archaix does not support simulation theory, that we're inside some type of mathematical experience? And if you don't want to, if you did share that, Why wouldn't you share the palindromic sequences of historical events which show that we're in a programmed reality? All throughout the Archaix, my published books, all throughout these presentations, I've shown evidence over and over and over, and even provided you the source materials. It is inexplicable how these palindromic patterns appear forward and backward in time. Isometric projections that are so perfect, they had predictive value. How? How do you practice these exclusions? How do you avoid mentioning the very hardcore data that overturns your dumb assertion that we're not living in some type of mathematical construct? We're not living in a simulation. We're not living in a yeah, I don't get it. Why would you avoid explaining to people some of the greatest evidences for a theory that you say isn't true? Because if it's not true, you should very easily be able to show it's not true. If you don't, you're a hypocrite and you're practicing exclusions. So history of the collective is a fixed field. This is what we've shown many times in Archaix. Like I said, I'm waiting for someone to disprove it. But we have many, many examples that we're experiencing phenomena in a mathematical construct, and that we have these mental exercises. There are really unusual syncs between the psyche and the simulation. But we can't avoid the Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox is pretty much proof that we are alone. Therefore, we're in a confined environment. And the Fermi paradox is that if the sky is real, and all those stars are actually suns, and that the blackness of space actually contains the light of further distant suns that equally have planets in their habitable zones, then extraterrestrial civilization should have been here hundreds of thousands of times already. They should have left derelict ships. There should be super constructions left over nearby for us to study. There should be humanitarian, like I say humanitarian, but we maybe call it galactitarian, I don't know. But there should be all kinds of evidence that extraterrestrial species have been here. Not contrived like ancient aliens, because that's what we do in Archaix too. We dissect ancient aliens and show every bit of this is ancient human technology. None of this is alien. So why practice the exclusion? If you're going to be critical about something not being true, why would you avoid its best evidence? Me, if I'm going to show something not true, I'm going to attack your best evidence first. Don't understand. I don't get it. Educate me. So we've shown over and over right here in Archaix, man, that the simulacrum is advanced technology designed to mimic a world. That's what we're in right now. It's extremely advanced. But being advanced allows for many magical things to happen here. And that's why I don't get the duplicity. Why would you be so critical, especially if you're in Gaia? Why would you be so critical of being in a simulation when a simulation actually allows for things that your world would never allow for? Mandela effects and synchronicities and deja vus and coincidences, and even the ability of a soul by virtue of a powerful sync between the psyche and the simulation to actually forge and create circumstances ex nihilo just by wanting to experience them alone. Well, I mean, you got people in Gaia that have all this, the power of the mind and the secret type stuff and the Neville Goddard type stuff. So I don't get it. How does that work in a Newtonian universe? How does that at all work in the world that you want to believe in? It works just fine in a simulation. We have builder protocols. We have reset protocols. We've got dungeon programming. We've got negative default programming, feedback loops. Everything is explained in simulation theory. Everything. Even resets are just clearing the cache. I don't get it. I don't get the duplicity. So how do you not tell your community while you're saying simulation theory is not true? How do you not tell them about like Crow 77's research when he first found the lunar wave and then later amended it and said, oh man, guys, this is over the whole sky, not just the moon? How do you ignore that? In Archaix, we can't practice exclusions. Everything must fit. How do you ignore the fact that it's been documented that there is a reboot of the sky? Every few seconds, so it's a wave goes over the entire sky, and it moves everything. All the stars, the moon, everything. The sun, clouds, everything slightly shifts every few seconds. Or might be 4 or 5 times a second. I don't know. But the wave that crosses the sky, yeah, it's factual. How do you not mention that? How do you include that in your paradigm but exclude it from mine? I don't get it. Maybe you can educate me. So it's not only that, but in simulation theory, we have actually provided an explanation and a working model on the rangefinders that people call orbs. Because until Archaix put all this together, have you guys ever seen anywhere where somebody showed that orbs were making crop circles? They make volcanoes go off. They're inside the first wave of tsunamis. They're inside the funnels of tornadoes and typhoons. Or orbs are seen around Bigfoot and cryptid phenomena. Orbs are responsible for cattle mutilations. They are responsible for 411 cases. The orbs go in and out. People disappear. Animals disappear. Have you ever seen any other venue put all that together? I've got several videos on orbs now. Oh, introduce Ashton Forbes. Orbs made an airplane disappear. Then I showed 2 more video clips after the Ashton Forbes interview where orbs were doing the same thing, but they just couldn't lock on to another airplane. Totally different one. So in simulation theory, we're hyper advanced technology far beyond our present ability inside the construct. But in simulation theory, there's no gods. There is a creator, there's an oversoul, a spirit, but there's no gods inside the construct. It's all human. And on the outside of the construct, it's probably human too, which is the reason why some of the oldest texts say that man was made in his image, because his image is just a clone. It's just whatever humans are on the outside of the construct had to clone versions of themselves that could make it inside the construct. So simulation theory has an explanation for the orbs. And when they vectoring is when the orbs hone in on a victim, and then they burst outward in a dimensional envelope, which creates a convergence field. This tertiary field is what people, planes, boats, animals get caught in. If they're perfectly inside the tertiary field, which is a much stronger arithmetic, or maybe even an anti-arithmetic, when the orb collapses, it takes that arithmetic with it wherever it goes. Whatever was inside that arithmetic goes with it. It's tertiary field. So in simulation theory, we actually have evidence that the orbs are a part of a grand operating system that is creating phenomena to make this world more believable. That's what the orbs do. And we find that many materials are vectored in and out of the construct using these orbs. These orbs act like rangefinders, and they're the common denominator. When Christopher Columbus was on his ship sailing toward Cuba, it's in his ship log. He saw orbs out there over the water, and yeah, man, they've been seen for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. They've been here. They're a part of the construct. So in claiming that simulation theory could not possibly be true, how do you account for the placebo effect? Because simulation theory has an explanation for it. How is it possible that I can take something that is not true, but tell you that it's true, and you act on that lie, and it still works for you? How is it possible that an ancient Chinese adage, when the right man makes use of the wrong means still work in the right way? How is it possible that it's mind over matter? How is it possible in a Newtonian world, in your world? How is that possible? Yeah, you live in a world of cause and effect. You live in a world of physicality. You live in a world where physics constants are the only constants. How is it possible? How does a mind manipulate the environment in your world? In a codified world based off protocols and programming, it's very easy. It is very easy in simulation theory to account for all these things. All the edits and all the anomalies and the synchronicities and the deja vus, they're all accounted for. Programming glitches, even fossils are accounted for in prior programs that had the cache cleared, which to us feels like a cataclysm, a full systemic reset. But there's still layers of programming. And the programming actually resurfaces the world for us. And we've seen this in red dust, red rain, red mud, earthquakes, volcanic resurfacing, all kinds of forests being burned out, flooded. And we have whole civilizations trapped underneath coal seams. Go figure that one out. How come Randall Carlson doesn't talk about that? Instead, he's talking about rocks falling from space. Why don't you talk about coal seams? Why don't you talk about all the artifacts, all the spoons and knives and bells and weapons and all the weird stuff that's been found in coal seams? Yeah, talk about that. But you can't. You can't, because that introduces a whole new ball game into the discussion. There's a lot of things Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, and that little tribe don't want to talk about. They steady want to talk about rocks from space and younger Dryas, and they want to talk about Ice Age, but they don't want to talk about all the well-documented historical cataclysms that happened since then, because every single one of them would do away with relative dating models. Yeah, once you take in consideration what happened in 713 BC, when the sun stopped moving in the sky, retrograded 10 degrees, and every calendar in the world changed after that, adding 5.25 days called the unlucky days or the worthless days to their calendars, and they put them on the end of their years. Once you take that into account, you have to understand all the clocks were affected. Every atomic clock was affected. So how do you amend your data? But you can't even stop there, because before that was 1687 BC, one of the worst disasters in recorded human history. It ended the old world. It is the origin of all these megalithic architecture, all these sites that all these guys are always pontificating about, and look at all the Cyclopean masonry and all that. It's one civilization. The Heliolithic Maritime Empire was worldwide, and it was destroyed in a single day in the Ogaigian Cataclysm. But the Ogaigian Cataclysm started a 25-year darkness. All of that affected the atomic clocks. But nobody's going back and retesting all that. Nobody's doing anything. 522 AD, same thing. Massive darkness. This one lasted for centuries. We call it the Dark Ages. Volcanism everywhere. Volcanoes too. Outgassing. It all affects the isotopic breakdown of parent elements into daughter elements. It changes those atomic clocks. It also alters the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. It has never been stable. It never will be stable. Every bit of this is to hide all this Ice Age talk and rocks from space. Every bit of this is to completely hide vapor canopy volcano cycles. But anyway, I digress. We haven't even got to him yet. We're still over here with the mystics. Gaia and everybody talking about simulation theory is BS. Yeah, I'm still waiting for them to disprove it. You can talk about all you want. All right, let's see. Where am I at in my notes? So yeah, the orbs are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. I have several videos on those. It's inexplicable. Well, what are the chances? I mean, mathematically, what are the chances that all this disparate phenomena is all linked to orbs? What are the chances? It's crazy. So I don't say hypocrisy lightly. Because these same individuals talking about, oh man, I don't listen to Archaix. That simulation theory is not real. That's just fake. That's just something made up because it's modern times. The same people coming out of their mouth talk about archons. The same people, archons. Oh yeah, archons did this, archons did that. Well, in Archaix, we've identified archons as being subroutines of AIX. They are augmented intelligences that have a definite function inside the construct, and they carry out those functions. So, yeah, it's just, to me, it's just duplicity. Different civilizations are going to call them different things. They're going to be called angels. They're going to be called deities. They're going to be called jinn. They're going to be called fairies. They're going to be called trolls. Whatever. So those individuals saying simulation is not true, just they're going to have to practice the exclusion. They're never going to tell their communities. In the same time, they tell them, hey, man, no, man, don't even pay attention to that. Simulation theory is impossible. We're not in a simulation. But at the same time, they're not going to tell them anything about all the ancient text and all the chronometrical markers that are found in structures all over the world and in historical accounts that talk about a 138, 276, 414, 552, 690, 936, 1,104 year period, a 1,518 year period, a 1,656 year period, a 1,794 year period. Shall I continue? A 2,484 year period, a 2,760 year period, 2,898 year period. Every single number I just gave you is divisible by 138. In ancient Egyptian texts, they even talk about a 138 month period and a 1,656 month period, all commiserate to 138. We have Ionian scholars, ancient records, the Aymara, Incan texts. We have all these numbers embedded in all over the world. And this is one of the Archaix challenges. Yeah, if history is fake, or if you don't think we're in a simulation, you need to answer for this anomaly, because this shows that the entire structure of history is based on a mathematical timeline, and it's perfect. So there's a lot. But one of the greatest hypocrisies is, and I understand a lot of people aren't as well read as me, and I get it. But you know, I've been seeing the attacks. People draw them to my attention. I'll go listen to the clips and I'll look. People throw their darts. But if you're going to believe you're in a mystical world full of occult forces and it's a physical place of physicality and yet it's full of spiritual beings, that's all good. And with the same mouth talking about simulation theory is not true, but you won't address any of the simulation theory evidence, then you're a real hypocrite, because we have genuine mysteries that are only explained by the collision of simulations. We call them convergence fields because somebody brought a book through a tertiary field one time and they didn't get back out fast enough. And our world was blessed with the Voynich manuscript. If you've never flipped through this book, which is still an enigma to scholars, it is a huge book. It has never been translated. There have been hundreds of attempts. It's not referable to any known language. Not a single plant in this book. It's a book on botany, but it's not a single plant in this book exists in our world. There's beautiful plants, all kinds of shells and plants and everything in this book. The only thing that's recognizable in this book, in the Voynich manuscript, it's been a mystery ever since it was found. The only thing that's recognizable in this book are humans. Humans are the only thing in this book that we actually know. Okay, wow, it's people. No symbols, none of the iconography, the statuary, all the stuff that's seen in the background, the terrain, nothing is commiserate with our world. It's a big book and it's packed full of writings, but you can't it's not decipherable. There have been many attempts to decipher it, but they've all been disproven. Just really easy to fake a translation when you've believe me, they've got American cryptologists, people using AI, code breakers and stuff. Everybody's giving it their shot. I'm telling you now. This is the best evidence of field conversion right here. This is tertiary field conversion. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in Archaix, we show that there are nodal apertures. There are times when calendars collide. There's reasons the ancients religiously followed these timekeeping systems. And there are nodal apertures when these time periods transect. When they transect, we're dealing with a field intrusion from somewhere else. That's what the calendars were measuring. The field intrusion is very different than the terrasphere where we're at. Whatever the intrusive deal, its arithmetic is much greater than ours. Maybe a greater density or a higher vibration, I don't know. But everybody who gets caught in the tertiary field, when the terrasphere is one field, the intruding field is a second field, and the overlap creates a middle field called tertiary. When the fields pull apart, whatever was in the tertiary field goes with the stronger mathematics. Well, somebody brought a book over, or they wrote the book during one of the 60-year tertiary field events that we've documented in Archaix, because nothing in this book belongs in this world. So anyway, I say that because I've been quiet for months, but I've been hearing the criticism coming from Gaia. I heard it from Gigi Young. I've been hearing it. But if you're going to criticize something, everybody knows my position. If I'm going to criticize something, I'm going full metal jacket, unloading data on those people, and that's why none of them want to debate. I'm not going to criticize something that I cannot control the arguments. Yeah, that's what data will do. When you record enough information, there is no arguments in the world you would be unprepared for. But if people are going to shoot their darts, but practice exclusions, then I'm going to have to call them hypocrites. Practicing exclusions is not going through the data or the information for which you're trying to disprove. Yeah, that's not acceptable in any venue, whether you're debating or not. So that's just one group. Let's address this other group. This other group is headed by Randall Carlson, who's got a little scientific background, maybe a little bit. Greg Braden also. What's the common denominator between Randall Carlson and Greg Braden? Can any of you answer me in the chat? What is the common denominator that links these two men? I'm just curious. Before I say anything, does anybody know what the common denominator is? Both of them have spoken on spiritual matters. Both of them are considered by the community as truthers. Both of them talk about historical matters and all that. But what bridges these two men together? Freemason, I don't know. Atlantis dating, yes, but that's not there. Thank you, Martin Davis. Uniformitarians. That's what bridges these two men together. You can't separate their messages from this model. Uniformitarianism is the greatest threat to truth this world has ever seen when considering anything of historical value. Because uniformitarianism is what absolutely allows these people to practice exclusions and do it with scientific backing. That's right. I'm not allowed to practice exclusions. Yeah, if I practice exclusions, there'd be other people out there instantly attacking because they would see it. But I cover my bases. But you can practice exclusions when you're talking about rocks falling from space. You can practice exclusions when you're talking about 1 or 2 or 5 or 19 of the 59 different ice age models that are out there, trying to explain how errata could be going in the absolute opposite direction than the ice age theory promotes. Yeah, you could practice exclusions when you're providing dates for dinosaur fossils. Oh, this is 55 million years ago. So apparently this dinosaur here, this species here, lived for another 10 millions after the KT boundary. Chicxulub rock fell out and created the Gulf of Mexico. They have these beautiful models, but that's all they are. It's imagination. It's like adult fantasy. It's like, let's just put a bunch of models together and try to sound smart. And maybe some of these people will believe us when we tell them, yeah, it's been carbon-14 dated. Yeah, we picked up that rock right there, found some material we could date. And yeah, it shows us that the actual date is whatever umpteen million years you want to put on it. But there's a whole lot that can never be mentioned when you're promoting uniformitarianism. There's a lot of mysteries out there that you absolutely must give a falsified version of in order to also promote uniformitarianism. So let's go through them. Let's go through them right now. And you tell me, I'm not going to tell you, you tell me, has Randall Carlson, Greg Braden, or any of these other so-called truthers that are promoting uniformitarian theories like Graham Hancock, trying to fit everything in a uniformitarian model, if any of these guys have ever talked about some of these other topics. Because just talking about these other topics completely overturns the uniformitarian model, which is nothing but a house of dominoes. Well, it'll all fall. So these men pretend to be catastrophists. Remember, from the beginning of my channel, I've been telling you, in the scientific world, there are only two schools of historical thought. You're going to get a whole bunch of scientists trying to chop that empty space between them up into further categories because promoting confusion is the best way to sweep the facts under the rug. But the truth is, there's only two schools of thought. You're either a catastrophist or you're a uniformitarian. But in the alt media community, in the past 10, 15 years online, we've got a lot of uniformitarians trying to pass themselves off as catastrophists. And they've been doing it with the Younger Dryas impact theory. That was their door in. Randall Carlson is one that's terrible at it. He's terrible at it. Marrying these two theories together. But in marrying these two theories, he puts the cataclysms way too far in the past. And then with Atlantis, they got busted because Jason of Archaix collapsed that bullshit, showing that Graham Hancock lied in Fingerprints of the Gods, saying that there's no evidence the Egyptians ever counted years, 30 days, when I showed him 30 sources that yeah, indeed they did. They did. So Atlantis could not possibly be dated at that time. So taking Atlantis dating from them, which they won't acknowledge. Randall Carlson was just on 2 weeks ago talking about Atlantis 9,600 BC. And I know for a fact the man watches my channel because he keeps popping up on my feed. I do not watch Randall Carlson. I do not like Randall Carlson. And I don't need his garbage on my feed, on X. But he keeps popping up on my feed just like Jay Anderson. Why? Because these guys are always on my page, always going through my stuff. I know this. It's the only reason why they keep popping up on my deal, because I do not actively look for them at all. So this Greg Braden is the same, man. He's the same. He claims catastrophism, but he packages it in uniformitarian model, and you can't do that. I'm gonna tell you why they do it though. I'm gonna tell you why. So they pretend to be catastrophists while they're actually painting uniformitarian concepts. Uniformitarian concepts, basically, you have to understand the entire naturalists. Before they were called scientists, they were called naturalists. Going all the way back to the Ionian days of ancient Greece, in the 7 wise men of Greece. All the way back then, the naturalists were catastrophists. Catastrophism has been what every scientist throughout all time periods believed in, because he saw evidence of it. He knows that in the days of his grandfathers, a tsunami wiped out these islands in the Cyclades. Or he knows that in the days of his family, 300 years earlier, Knossos was wiped off the map by a burning mountain in the middle of the Mediterranean. Yeah, Santorini on Crete, on Thera. So they were catastrophists because they saw the evidence. They knew it was all recorded. But uniformitarianism only came about in the early 1800s. And this is when the whole dinosaur model was invented and the geologic column was invented. And in 1901, Wagner invented the continental drift. And yeah, all of it was in lockstep. So they bridged catastrophism and uniformitarianism with this new theory of Younger Dryas impact theory. And then they tried to pass off the Atlantis story as evidence of this. They got busted on the Atlantis stuff, although they still lied to their own communities. Yeah, that's a lie. It's a lie. Randall Carlson's been all over my page, and so has Graham Hancock's people. I promise you, even probably Graham Hancock. They know I've been attacking virulently. There's no way they don't know about this research by now. Not with all the people I know who personally email Graham Hancock. There's no way he doesn't know. He knows I did a full critique on Fingerprints of the Gods. Hell yeah, he knows. So I'm going to tell you like this. I can no longer accept this as a mistake. I can't. When do you decide these men are not making a mistake? When do you actually decide as a community? No, man, you guys are liars. You guys are liars. Not only does this data overturn all that, but you totally ignore that this guy exists or this data has ever been published. No, man. When, as a community, is there going to be a tipping point when the community turns on these men for lying because it's no longer making a mistake? They're not mistaken when they continually promote the falsified material. So that's what this Ice Age, they married a rock from space, which reinforces another psyop when a rock from space fell 65 million years ago and killed the dinosaurs. But we have a lot of problems. And the only way uniformitarians can cover up the discrepancies is by practicing exclusions. So Jason, what are you talking about? What discrepancies do they need to cover up? Oh, I thought you'd never ask. Let's go through a list of those discrepancies right now to see what exactly these uniformitarians never want to talk about because it completely overturns their bullshit models. Well, on this Saturday night, they talk about meteor craters are made from rocks falling from space. Who knows? Maybe some rocks did fall from space and hit the ground. I don't know. But I do know this. We have caldera underneath the oceans where trapped gases blow out under high pressure of being underwater underneath the ocean. And when they blow out, they dome inward. It's a collapsed cavern of gas and they dome inward. It's not volcanic. There's nothing volcanic about it. And it creates a bowl. And then, 10,000 years later, that area is no longer at the bottom of the sea. There's been some type of shift. And now that area is on dry land. Call it Arizona. Call it Arizona Meteor Crater. It's right there. I've been there. You guys know I did a video from there. All NASA psyop. The whole tourist shop is all NASA psyop. And that place has nothing to do with a rock from the sky at all. It's dumb. It's dumb. These things have been all over our world. Remember, the oldest theories about the moon is that it had a glaciosphere, which means that at one time there was an ocean on the moon. It changes what a lot of those pockmarks are. Some of them might be debris in the sim, whatever, however you want to imagine it. But a lot of them might be something else once you imagine the surface of the moon was covered in a thick ocean, which would have created an immense amount of pressure. And then something happened. All that liquid flash froze. The entire moon froze. And when it did, it fractured like glass. And the core remained behind, which we call a moon. But the glaciosphere fractured and rained on Earth. And when it rained on Earth, it collapsed our vapor canopy. And it caused all kinds of hell, epic cataclysm. So, anyway, that too is just a theory. Although it's one that antedates the whole uniformitarian model. But still, this uniformitarian model requires us to believe that the sun is 93 million miles away. It requires us to believe that moonlight is solar light reflected. So uniformitarianism promotes the idea that we're always in danger. Guys, you got to be scared. You got to be scared. There's no cause for bravado. You shouldn't be brave. Don't keep your chin up. You got to be scared, because at any time, a coronal mass ejection could leave the sun and it can incinerate our world. We'll all die. At any time. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. And we have to pray that we don't get killed by a rock from space before that happens. That's uniformitarianism. So one of the things that these uniformitarians don't want to talk about, Randall Carlson recently was talking about the Tunguska event. I paid attention. I listened to him. Guess what he didn't say? He didn't quote the original Russian reports. Now, I don't know if that was a mistake and he doesn't know that material exists. But the original Russian eyewitness reports were very specific. The people of Siberia watched as that object descended from the sky, and they watched it change directions twice. 1908, over Siberia, Russia, probably the most uninhabited region in the world. Tunguska, Siberia. The people watched it change direction twice before it lowered and then detonated in the sky, flattening 50 square miles of forest like matchsticks, even registering air pressure differentials as far as London. Yeah, whatever it was, it moved with intelligence, and it seemed to want to detonate where the least amount of people were located. But uniformitarians don't mention all that. They can't have a bolide coming in the atmosphere changing directions twice at 78,000 miles an hour. They can't have that, so they don't mention it. Oh, what's that called, Jason? It's called practicing exclusions. Who wouldn't be a prize marksman if only his hits were recorded? Charles Fort, 1919, as I said. So practicing exclusions allows people to omit data that's very relevant because it changes. That's not a meteorite. That wasn't a comet that came in and blew up over Tunguska. It changes everything. We don't know what it was. We just know it changed directions twice, and it seemed like the last trajectory was the one that sent it to detonate over the least populated area of Siberia in 1908. That's all we know. Anything else, we're adding to the data. So from a uniformitarian perspective, they're always going to wash these things over. So all that's omitted just because it gives them evidence by practicing omissions. It allows them to paint this as contributory to their uniformitarian threat of rocks falling from space. That's it. It's a perfect example, guys. 1908. Did you see the deforestation? One small comet probably started as a comet, and then all its icy material was by friction was taken off of it, and then it was just a meteorite when it was coming in, and it was an asteroid. Then it turned into a meteorite coming in, but then it detonated a couple of miles over Tunguska. Yeah, see how dangerous things are? What if that would have happened in New York? Yeah, what if that would have happened over Houston, Texas, 5.5 million people? Yeah, that's uniformitarianism. Let's create threats like rocks from space. Yeah, coronal mass ejections from an object 93 million miles away, allegedly. So the whole Ice Age deal, it's a paradox. It's almost as if the Oversoul has a sense of humor, because both Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock and many others trying to use 500-year-old maps that show ice-free Antarctica. 3 or 4 separate maps show this. They show the mountains and valleys and the contour of the beaches and all that in proportion to what they are underneath a mile and a half, 2 miles of ice. So It's like God has a sense of humor. Instead of just applying Occam's razor, removing the most complicated material out of the field to leave behind to get to the conclusion that requires the least amount of assumptions. It's real simple. You can get two assumptions out of this. The existence of maps that show Antarctica with no ice caps, and they're only 500 to 550-year-old maps. Well, that lines up perfectly with everything we know about the building of the cathedrals, of the universities, of coming out the Middle Ages, the Norman period of castle construction, the Crusader period. It matches everything because that started around the year 1050. But 50 years before that, it's a big silence. The 900s, the 800s, the 700s, because something terrible happened in the 600s. We've been through that many times in Archaix. Total systemic reset. Climate changed everything. It was terrible. Worldwide starvation. But something also happened. Gamma ray saturation. So much gamma ray saturation happened at that time. All of a sudden, we have representations of animals that this world was supposed to have gotten rid of 65 million years ago. By practicing exclusions, uniformitarians don't have to talk about what was found in Native American burial sites. They don't have to talk about what's been painted inside of medieval churches. They don't have to talk about the sculptures they find of humans fighting anatomically perfect dinosaurs. They don't have to talk about all these amazing things that have been found all over the world. Why hasn't Randall Carlson done a video on human and dinosaur footprints found together? Why? Dude's in his 60s, right? 70s? Shoot, he's probably access to a lot more information than I got. Why? Why would you not want to provide your community such an incredible video? Don't you know about Glen Rose, Texas? Don't you know 2 scientists flew into Glen Rose, Texas to destroy that specimen, human footprint over a dinosaur print? Yeah. It's amazing how many dinosaur and human footprints were found right next to each other in the same strata. How's that? How? What's further amazing and totally ignored. Why? Because they're practicing exclusions. Why would you not mention the fact that human artifacts and architecture have been found far deeper than you find dinosaur skeletons? Dinosaur skeletons are almost always on the surface. Dinosaur footprints and human footprints fossilized on the surface. Cart ruts, what they call cart ruts, but they're actually wheeled vehicles. Cart ruts found in North America, in Asia, all throughout the Mediterranean and Malta, fossilized on the surface. How's this possible? Why are human artifacts found at 600-foot depth? You know, in Archaix, we got whole videos showing these. All the amazing things that have been pulled up from wells and what's been found by miners in caves. Yeah, even in Russia, a whole wheeled mechanism up in the ceiling of a cavern. I've showed pictures of that. Why aren't our uniformitarians looking at the OO parts, out of place artifacts? Why? Because it completely does away with uniformitarian fake dating. How are you going to pass off? How are you going to pass off that strata that has a trilobite in there and sandal prints that perfectly show the stitching on the sandals? How are you going to pass that layer of strata off that shows human-made sandals impressed in the mud, and then one sandal goes right over a trilobite, which is supposed to be extinct 600 million years ago? You can't mention that. You can't even do a video about that. It completely undermines the whole uniformitarian dating model, all the geological ages, which most people don't even know because uniformitarians practice exclusions. What's the exclusion this time, Jason? Oh, it's not mentioning this fact. What's the fact, Jason? The fact is, nowhere in the world has the geologic column that, with all the different layers, supposed to be millions of years, nowhere in the world has there ever been found an intact geologic column. It's a theory. They find 4 or 5 layers here and they say it's this part. They find 5 or 6 layers here and they say it's that part. Nowhere in the world has the full geologic column ever been found. And the reason they're never going to find it is because it doesn't exist. Those layers have everything to do with local materials and their distribution according to weight and density when they were under high pressure water after a cataclysm. You're never going to find it. But there's nowhere in the world. So it's all arbitrary. So when they find 5 or 6 layers pancaked on the side of a cliff, all they have to do is go digging through the cliff and sooner, I found a bivalve. Oh, let me look at that. Let me look at my book. Okay, here's the bivalve right here. Oh, okay, this is a striped bivalve. I can tell right here. I can clean this off. Oh, here's the orifices on the back. There's where the muscle goes in. I'll tell you what. Oh, this is such species. Oh, really? Those died out 300 million years ago. Well, hell, that tells us that this whole layer is 300 million years old. And that means everything above it is younger and everything below it is older. And it's 100% a totally arbitrary and bullshit model. It's never been true anywhere in the world. It's just what they publish in books. It's called the geologic column, and it's absolutely artificial. What's great about Glen Rose, Texas, is they have a huge poster of the geologic column, and they show all the human artifacts: nails, swords, helmets, shields, human teeth, human skulls and stuff, and all the different layers with the type of fossils that you're supposed to find in them. It's great. It's great what they did. Just showing it's all BS. It's all bullshit. So this is what you get, man, from uniformitarians. Uniformitarians are going to talk about space rocks. Does Greg Braden, does Randall Carlson talk about space rocks? Absolutely. They're going to be talking about all kinds of concepts that are attached to space rocks, like coronal mass ejections, like Comet 3I Atlas, putting tails off in 2 different directions. Yeah, Randall Carlson just said that. Well, we got most comets, the tails always point away from the sun. That's true. That is very true. But Comet 3I Atlas has 2 or 3 tails pointing toward the sun as well. So Randall Carlson says, well, that's not the normal, but it's not unheard of either. Well, that's pretty interesting. I'd like to know an explanation for that. But if the sun is pushing out all this solar wind, then how in the hell can anything defy solar wind? If everything's getting pushed away by solar wind, how in the hell is this object so far away and it has tails sucked toward the sun? Is the sun becoming a black hole? It's starting to suck everything in? What's going on? I don't believe none of it, because I believe the sun is local, because I believe we're in a terrarium. It's a simulated environment. But this model also means that we have to believe that the moon's light is reflected from the sun. And I'm not buying that. There's too many studies that show otherwise. Remember, the sky lies. We are looking up into a sky that was programmed for us to observe and believe that we may be spinning on a disk or a planet, instead of this being a plane like it really is. So anyway, this uniformitarian model has to promote certain ideas, such as through NASA and the Apollo program, we sent men to the moon. Yeah, you have to believe that. That's a uniformitarian concept, because it was all 100% scientific backing, and they brought space rocks back, and what they said was space rocks, and all the astronauts looked so happy the very next day when they were giving their testimonies about what it was like on the moon. And it was all scripted, it's all BS. But that's what uniformitarianism promotes. It promotes that we also sent men to the moon, and that science is victorious, and we've done these things. So I don't know what changed since the 1950s when the Russians were publishing that the moon was holographic. I don't know, but uniformitarians have to promote that the relative dating methods like carbon-14 and potassium argon are relatively accurate, and we know they're not. Yeah, we know they're not. It's like a shotgun. It's like somebody, like a scientist finds something old, and then with a shotgun on a wall that's got a bunch of dates on it, shoots the shotgun. You know, a spread, the further you are, the bigger the spread. Well, you got 5 of those little BBs from that shotgun hitting one little area that looks real good to you. So it allows you to cut that little area out and throw away the rest, and then show the public, look how many hits we got on this. Look how many hits we got on this right here. It's amazing. Look at the dates. All these little hit right here. But you cut all this out and throw it all away. That's what relative dating methods allow the scientific community to do. It is absolutely arbitrary. It's fake as hell, and it's designed to be that way. It's practicing exclusions. That's what it is. Good book on it. Evolution Cruncher. It's a real good book. Also, I can't remember the name of that book. Darwin's Mistake. There's a real good book called Darwin's Mistake, and another one called Evolution Cruncher, which is 1,000 pages thick. It is absolutely packed with examples of relative dating methods all being arbitrary. Total BS. Yeah, in order to believe in like potassium argon or carbon-14 and any of those relative dating methods, you have to believe that the radioactive isotopic breakdown of carbon in the atmosphere has always been stable, and it's not. We have volcanism, we have vapor canopies, we have gamma ray event saturation events that have been documented by physicists that are all ignored in order to say, well, carbon breakdown in the atmosphere, there's no reason for it not to have been stable. We have no evidence that it's not been stable. So we're able to look back 10, 15,000 years when we measure the isotopic breakdowns in our soil samples and compare them with the atmosphere. It's total BS. Every single bit of it is arbitrary and fake. Wow, 1,200 people on a Saturday night? I might have to start doing some Saturday Night Lives. Saturday Night Live, guys. Dendrochronology, we've been through that before. It's another deal. So why? What exclusions do you have to practice as a uniformitarian? You're talking about all this fake shit, all theoretical, all unverifiable, but we have verifiable data that's completely ignored. Completely ignored. And there's a lot of scientific backing for these 3 dates. One of them is 3895 BC. You can round it off at the year 4000. Yes, we have a lot of scientific backing that a terrible cataclysm happened at that date. But you don't hear Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson talking about it. But it's published and anybody can review it. There is a lot of information that something terrible happened to our world about 4000 BC. That started the pre-flood world. 1656 years later, we have another event that's very well attested in scientific circles. As a matter of fact, in the year 1998, a whole consortium of international scientists in all different fields, it was a multidisciplinary approach. It's never been done since. But in 1998, they all came together and they produced their findings to show that around the 23rd century BC, our world was destroyed. 23rd century BC, guys. 2239 BC Great Typhon flood that I've told you guys so much about is the 23rd century BC. You don't hear anything but a rock falling from space during the Ice Age, which caused meltwater pulse 1b and all that BS from Hancock and Carlson. That's what you hear. You don't hear anything about these other cataclysms. Why? Because every single documented cataclysm altered the radioisotopic breakdown of elements in our atmosphere and in our topsoils. This means every relative dating model has to be modified. All the output has to take into consideration every single time that these cataclysms occurred, because they literally reset the atomic clocks. Everything is destroyed. The world is encased in a canopy. Solar radiation barely gets through. Everything is altered. Volcanism fills the atmosphere with so much pumice and debris. Everything affects the isotopic breakdown of elements from their parents to their daughters. But you're not going to hear these guys talk about these cataclysms, and they're epic. around 4000 BC, around 2239 BC, and then a major one called the Avellino event in 1687 BC. Scientists rounded up to 1700. It's only 13 years away. It's about the closest that a scientist has ever got to anything at that time period. So bravo to them. But in the month of May, 1687 BC, the Avellino event, it literally affected the entire world. We know of it in the historical record as the Ogygian deluge or the Ogygian cataclysm. Yeah, from Ireland all the way to the Mediterranean, completely destroyed. Parts of Asia, completely destroyed. Almost all the Americas reset. That's the Ogygian deluge. So we have 3895 BC, 2239 BC, and 1687 BC. 3 epic cataclysms. Every single one of these cataclysms would have affected the breakdown of radioactive isotopes. All the measurable samples, all the samples that they're wanting to measure from the ancient world would have been affected. They had also been affected in 1135 BC, which is the true dating of the destruction of Atlantis and the beginning of what's known as the Great Mediterranean Dark Age. 1135 BC is another cataclysm. It ended Pharaoh Seknakti's reign. But also, I don't know if 31 BC would have been big enough. I do know the Americas were destroyed. A great fiery dragon was seen over Egypt. It was during the Battle of Actium, massive earthquakes, one of the biggest in Jerusalem's history. Olympia in Greece was destroyed as well. There's red rain and red dust, storms. The 31 BC was pretty bad. It's also the last date that's recorded in the historical record for the Olmecs. 31 BC was a Olmec date steal. That's when it's dated. After that, the Olmecs disappear and they reappear as the Proto-Maya and then the Maya. So I don't know about 31 BC, but 522 AD would have also reset the clocks, started the Dark Ages. 522 AD was the only time in world history that the Phoenix phenomenon and the Nemesis X object were here at the same time. You can only imagine what happened. So why don't they ever mention these dates? Because we have them. Why don't they ever mention the research of Paul Laviolette, the gamma ray saturations? Oh my God, the gamma ray saturations would have changed everything. Everything. And we know also from the historical record that ambient radiation from volcanoes, or it's either from the sky or volcanoes are coming out of the ocean. One of them. These are the 3 sources for ambient radiation. Causes animals and plants and people to grow to astonishing sizes. So by never mentioning 3895 BC, 2239, and 1687 BC, by practicing these exclusions, they never draw attention to these epic cataclysms that are just as equally bad as this dumbass rock that fell from space in the Younger Dryas when there wasn't even no civilizations in. You follow me? They ignore all the tangible, verifiable, and real cataclysms to promote one so far in the past. We have to argue if humans were even doing anything other than mortar and pestle, painting pictures on cave walls. We have no evidence from that period of time of even townships and villages. So it's so far back in the past. That's what uniformitarians do. They shove all that stuff. It alters. This is what happened with Göbekli Tepe. We're going to talk about that one too, because it's nowhere near as old as what they've been claiming. And now it's coming out. It's starting to come out. I told you a year ago to be patient. I said this in my Göbekli Tepe. Hey man, y'all just be patient. Because pretty soon they're going to start uncovering things at Göbekli Tepe that's going to make them eat crow. And they're going to have to admit that this is nowhere near as old as they thought. Right now, they found some things at Göbekli Tepe that have them pushing back things further in time, because that's what uniformitarians do. Instead of bringing the actual date for the building of Göbekli Tepe into where it belongs in the year 3000, 2900, 2800 BC. Instead of bringing it to where it's supposed to be, they're trying to push other things further back to match Göbekli Tepe. It's not going to work. The reason it's not going to work is because there's already 3 different items that identify with the 26th century BC perfectly at Göbekli Tepe. I've covered this on my channel. Yeah, they didn't exist in 8000 BC. But there's three things that did exist in 2600 BC that were commonly known. They're all found at Göbekli Tepe. Well, now, thanks to somebody sending me an email today, drawing my attention to it, now they admit that they have found a seal with writing on it at Göbekli Tepe, and that changes everything. Yeah, go eat that, Graham Hancock. That changes everything. They want to push, the people at Göbekli Tepe want to push writing all the way back to 8000 BC. No, they're not going to, I'm going to tell you now, the world's scientific establishment's not going to let them do that. Writing appeared around 3000 BC. It was very primitive, and it took over 1,000 years to make it more sophisticated, according to the uniformitarian model. So, Göbekli Tepe, this new seal that was found that has writing on it, it's indecipherable, but it still has writing, and it's a seal. Seal. When did they start using seals, Jason? Oh, let me tell you, 2600 BC. They started using seals on seal impressions on clay. It's amazing how everything at Göbekli Tepe keeps on pointing toward 26, 25, 24th century BC, just pre-cataclysm. You don't have no evidence it was before a cataclysm. Well, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, they're all found underground, right? So, anyway, why ignore these massive destructions? I'm going to tell you why. Because every one of them are on a 552-year timeline. Yeah, these uniformitarians can't talk about the 3895 BC world destruction. They can't talk about the Typhon flood in 2239 BC because those are 552 years times 3 apart, which is 1656 years. They can't talk about the Ogygian deluge because we can't let the population find out that cataclysms can be predicted. We can't let the public know that there's a 552-year cycle out there we really need to be worried about. Because 1687 BC, the Avellino event that destroyed the entire world, 552 years after the Great Flood in 2239 BC. All three of those found on 552-year cycles and epicycles. All three of those are a part of the Phoenix phenomenon. All three of them are easily verifiable in the scientific record. But they're totally ignored by all these truthers who want to push a rock fell in the ice age and caused all our problems. Yeah, destroyed Atlantis. We're effed. Effed us off. It's ridiculous. So they can't let us know that all the events that happened in 1135 BC, well, hell, that was only 552 years after the Avellino event. The destruction of Atlantis was on a predictable timeline. That's crazy because the destruction of the Americas and Jerusalem and Olympia and the great sky dragon over Egypt in 31 BC during the Battle of Actium and all those earthquakes and how the Olmeca got wiped out in Central America, that was 31 BC. 31 BC, it's on the 552-year timeline. It's crazy. It's perfectly on the timeline. So, 522 AD, what started the Dark Ages, the only time Phoenix and Nemesis X have been here at the same time. Total systemic reset, population reset, civilization reset, religions were reset. Yeah, Christianity went super dumb and primitive. Christianity up until 500 AD was getting sophisticated. There was getting all kinds of doctrines in there, church councils and all that. And then after the Dark Ages started, Christianity got dumb. It got really stupid until the year 1000 when all these saints of the church have X-Men abilities. They're flying through the air. They're fighting gargoyles. They're riding on the back of wombats. It's crazy. It's like Christianity just took a plunge and then during the Norman period, it got sophisticated again, but not from European sources. It got sophisticated from an influx of manuscripts from the Middle East through the Arabian trade routes. So these guys can't talk about these because 522 was on the 552-year time period. They can't draw attention to this, so they keep telling you way over there. Way over there. That rock fell way over there on that ice. And that's why we got 500-year-old maps that show Antarctica and all that. The gaslighting to associate 500-year-old maps that show an ice-free Antarctica to your theory that a rock from space landed in the Ice Age 12,000 years ago, 11,600 years ago, and it's the reason we have maps of an ice. There's no correlate here. There's no way to bridge that dumbass shit with the truth of the existence of 500 and 550-year-old maps that show an ice age. If we just employ Occam's razor, it's really easy to see. Well, these maps are evidence that we're in an ice age now, because if we weren't in an ice age now, like when the maps were drawn, we'd have an ice-free Antarctica. It's real simple, which means there must be a different mechanism that puts all that ice there 1.5 miles high. Can't be snow, because they're the most arid areas in the entire world. Arid meaning dry. The snowfall is almost non-existent year-long at the North Pole and the South Pole because it's so arid. It's cold, but it's arid. It's dry. This means we have to come up with a whole new theory as to how all that snow and ice got there. Because it didn't take thousands of years, didn't take centuries, none of that. They have to ignore the 552-year cycle, because if they don't, it will implicate the Roman Catholic Church as to the real reason they created the Anno Domini calendar. It will also expose ice ages as bogus bullshit. We're in an ice age now. That model you got doesn't even explain glaciers. You got glaciers going in totally different directions than they're supposed to be going. People have recorded the errata. The errata is there's a field of distribution from the errata that has nothing to do with glaciers pushing or pulling topsoil materials and boulders into place. This errata is going totally opposite direction. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with ice age theory and all that. But these maps prove we're in an ice age now. And that over 500, 550 years ago, we must not have been in an ice age because navigators were mapping Antarctica. These aren't copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of copies going all the way back to before we even had copies of cuneiform clay and stone tablets. No, these aren't copies of copies of copies going way back to 12,000 BC. That's dumb. We don't even have any writings going back that far. It's dumb. Got to take them at face value. They're of recent provenance. There's no claim of antiquity on the maps. They don't say they're thousands of years old. Some of them do say that they're a copy of a former map, but that's very common. It's very common. Maps that get copied 2 or 3 times in a mariner's life, maybe more than that. So we're in an ice age now. And the mechanism has nothing to do with rocks from space. The mechanism is just like the ancient legends tell us the day the sky fell. The mechanism is vapor canopy periods, and they're a perfectly natural part of the human historical record. And vapor canopy periods answer for many things that the uniformitarians aren't allowed to talk about. Oh, that coffee's a little too strong. So, vapor canopy cycles explain how all that material gets in the mesosphere and the atmosphere. It explains the existence of titans and giants, gigantic plants, animals, snow and ice, far north and south, great floods. Yeah, vapor canopy does away with ice ages. Totally done. Vapor canopy does away with dinosaurs becoming extinct millions of years ago and by a space rock. Vapor canopy cycles do away with all that shit. So the uniformitarians, they have a problem because they promote that fossils are created under intense pressure and sometimes take hundreds of thousands to millions of years to form. That's uniformitarianism. Uniformitarians also claim that coal is formed when plants are crushed under pressure for millions or hundreds of thousands of years. That's their model. But their model does not answer for what we find in the archaeological record. Therefore, they must practice exclusions. They have to. They have to make up dates like the Great Flood of the Bible. Yeah. Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, and probably Greg Braden as well. I don't know. I haven't listened to it. I haven't heard him say it, but I'm pretty sure they're all following the same syllabus. Don't think there's originality here. They all claim the Great Flood was in the Younger Dryas period. That right there completely kills all the chronological information we have. It is just like uniformitarianism is a soul-killing doctrine. Yeah, well, Younger Dryas theory is a chronology-killing doctrine. Totally upsets everything we have in the chronological record. So, what you're not going to hear uniformitarians talk about are all the human artifacts that have been found in layers and in depths of our world far deeper than any dinosaurs have ever been found. That's a real anomaly there. That's a real mind bender. It's a real mind bender. Why are all the dinosaur skeletons on the top? You don't even have to dig far for dinosaur skeletons. Petrified human footprints, petrified cart tracks everywhere, petrified three-toed dinosaur giant bird tracks, whatever they are. And then human and all fossilized together like it ain't shit. All on the surface. But nails, terracotta batteries, piping, metallic tubes, metallic spheres, hammers, all found fossilized, statuary, figurines, bells, utensils, and spoons, master metalwork. Somebody really knew what they were doing when they made these things. Found at 600-foot depth. How do you explain that? Oh, I'm going to tell you. If you're promoting uniformitarianism, you don't have to. Just practice exclusions. Just ignore all the hundreds of examples from all the books from the 1800s all the way up to 1940 of all the coal mines that reported the strange things that they were seeing underground. All the coal that was brought up and broke open, and human artifacts were in all that, but it takes millions of years for coal to form. Absolutely crazy. You got to really be careful who you get your information from, because this shit is toxic. It's toxic. So it's not just human artifacts. It's not just humans being deeper than dinosaurs and human artifacts being deeper than dinosaurs. It's also the out-of-place artifacts, the technolithic architecture. We have too much evidence all over the world of sophistication. And it's not like the ancient alien theorists say. It's all of human manufacture. But how do you ignore it? Now, granted, that is Ancient Apocalypse. Graham Hancock's deal. That's basically his premise, that there was a technologically advanced civilization. But the problem is he puts it back too far. He kills the entire historical record verifiable chronology by asserting a date that's so far back. Because there's nothing back that far that we have. And yet, I have a video on my channel. I would love for any scientist to go through it. Show me how this is possible. I got a video that shows insects that are supposed to have been extinct and died out and fossilized and found in fossil amber 40 million years ago are in my backyard today. And I show so many different species of insects, and they're all alive today. No transitional forms, no evolution, no adaptation. It's like little tiny, they're just little, I don't know, man, exoskeleton pieces of programming. And just like they were alive 40 million years ago, they're alive now in my backyard. All I got to do is walk around and move logs, pick up rocks. They're everywhere. Doodle bugs, centipedes. I've showed fossilized butterflies, moths, mayflies, dragonflies. Crickets, grasshoppers, cicadas, locusts, everything. I've showed it all. How's that possible? That insects, also amphibians, also reptiles, all of them, arachnids as well. I showed a bunch of species of spider. They're identical to the ones today. 40 million years old. For all in 40 million year old strata. How is it possible? No evolutionary development from all. It's like the whole world flash froze back then. And that's another issue. These uniformitarians don't want to talk about the thousands and thousands of specimens of fossils that have been found perfectly preserved in stone in 3D. That right there is a real, that's a stumper there. That's a stumper. Because when we were growing up as kids, they showed us fossils that were all crushed into the ground. Oh yeah, fossils are only formed under high pressure. Normally there's flooding on top of the sediments after they've been buried alive. And the high pressure flattens them out and creates this fossil. Real nice. But since the 1970s and 80s, when I was being educated, people all over the world have been finding 3D fossils. Deep. Weren't created by pressure at all. Oh no, they were still created by pressure. It's just the area around their body hardened for some reason. You know, as more pressure was being applied, they've come up with every theory in the world trying to explain how you get 3D jellyfish from the bottom of the sea, and as if they're still flowing through water. But we know what happened. Somebody turned the switch off. The whole world flash froze all the way to the bottom of the oceans. But you don't hear any uniformitarians talking about this, because it changes everything. How can you promote natural selection and evolution if there was an event that froze the ocean bottoms? Even geothermal heat under high pressure underneath the oceans couldn't have kept the jellyfish warm enough. They actually flash froze. And this is why all these creatures from the bottom of the ocean have been found in 3D, in the middle of swallowing other creatures, in the middle of having sex with other creatures, in the middle of giving birth, and in the middle of fighting. We have fossils of all those scenarios. They never saw their death coming. They were flash frozen in an instant, underwater at the bottom of the ocean. So, where's those uniformitarians that want to promote their uniformitarian ideas and explain this at the same time? This is explained in simulation theory. Somebody turned the switch off. Somebody cleared the cache. We went to negative 200 degrees in a nanosecond. It is the only way that all these suction cups on octopus and all these little cilia and hairs on shrimp have been perfectly preserved in stone. The whole world flash froze. But you don't hear these guys talking about that, because it creates a discontinuum, because there should be nothing alive after such an event. And yet, I've got every one of those insects in my backyard right now that have been found flash froze just like that. And we have all those amphibians and all those turtles and frogs and snakes. They're all still alive today. Alligators too, straight out of 40 million year old strata, still alive today. No changes. Everybody knows about that old nasty ass Komodo dragon. So they have to practice exclusions. And this is what Emmanuel Velikovsky also said in his books. He said that scientists will totally ignore any phenomena that they cannot explain. Yeah. It's called practicing exclusions. Can't do that in Archaix. Everything must fit. Everything. Flash frozen 3D fossils on the bottom of the ocean in mid-birth, in mid-swim, mid-flight. We even have birds. We got all kinds of stuff. Mid-consumption, mid-eating, flash frozen. Doesn't even make sense by the uniformitarian model. Because if that happened, the whole world died. And if the whole world died, how in the hell are all those life forms still perfectly existing today and without any sign of any adaptation or development? How? Something's wrong with the theory. Something is wrong with the theory. So another event that is ignored. We can't blame people for not having access to all the information. Archaix has been built. It's a wide diversity of data from many different sources, multidisciplinary, and a lot of them from old books most people have never had in contact with. That's why the information is so curious. But once the information has been in the field, like this has for about 3 years, you can't ignore it. your own theories have to fit this in somewhere. There is no doubt. Now, Graham Hancock might create his own bibliographic citation and then cite himself and say there is no evidence whatsoever that the ancient world knew of a 360-day year. They just had not discovered the 365-day year yet. Some dumbass assertion like that. He would do that in his books. We've already seen him lie about not being any evidence that the Egyptians considered a year to be 30 days, which was a month to other civilizations. He said it's not true. Well, we know it is, and we know that by many, many different citations from the ancient world that he had in his bibliography. That's why I'm not saying they're making mistakes. They've gone past. They've already crossed the Rubicon. It's no longer mistakes. It's outright lies now. So, point I was going to make with the 360-day year. You can't ignore the fact that every civilization in the world had a 360-day year. In fact, the oldest calendars in the year aren't even commensurate with a 365-day year. The Vedic systems, every yuga, every single yuga, 216,000, 108,000, 432,000, 684,000, 864,000, 1,728,000 years. All the yugas, the Maya cycles, the Maya yugas and all that, every single one of them are divisible by 360. The Sumerian king list, 241,200 shars, which is only 670 solar years, which matches, this is the seven kings of Sumer. And it just so happens that they reigned at the exact same time in the Chinese chronology as the pre-flood dragon kings. But the king list is only divisible in units of 360. 241,200 shars of the reign of the seven kings is precisely 670 years on a 360-day timeline for a year. All these civilizations, they only knew a 360-day year. The biblical Old Testament knew a 360-day year. And you'll get the argument from uniformitarians that, oh man, of course they only had a 360-day year. They hadn't discovered the extra 5 days yet. Meticulous stargazers who built megalithic temples to watch everything in the sky didn't discover 5 days missing off of their calendar for thousands of years of sky watching. Shut the front door. It is so dumb what we were told, gaslighted. The year was 360 days, just like the 1,872,000 days of the Mayan long counts, 13 Bactans, with each Bactan being 144,000 days. Each Bactan was divisible by 360. You can take 144,000 and divide it by 360 evenly, just like you can take 1,872,000 days of the full Mayan long count and divide it by 360, and you'll get a perfect calendar round for ancient America, 5,200 years. Yeah, if you don't know that, that's the holy number. And ancient American systems, 13 times 4 was the holy number. It was the calendar round. The Zapotec, the Toltec, the Aztec, they all venerated a 52-year cycle. The Mayan long count, which is an ancient American system, was 52 of the cycles 100 times over for 1,872,000 days, which was divided under the 13 heavens for the 13 epics. Each one of these was 400 years old. It was 400 times 360. So anyway, every calendar of the ancient world was divisible by 360, but something happened. Uniformitarians can't talk about it. But this is why you won't see Graham Hancock and some of those that are in that circle cite Immanuel Velikovsky. Oh, they'll shoot their darts, like they'll steal from him, like Mankind and Amnesia and stuff like that. They'll take his titles and all that, but they won't cite his research because his research completely undoes uniformitarian principles. Yeah, shows In the 8th century BC, the calendar changed because of an event in the sky. Reset the atomic clocks. Here's another date we're gonna have to take into consideration when we want to measure the isotopic breakdown of parent elements into their daughter elements. We got another event here because something happened to the sun and it stopped moving across the sky. Then it went 10 degrees backwards before it started moving again. It is an event that was recorded in both hemispheres. Emanuel Velikovsky's got whole books published about this event. And after the event, every civilization in the world had to do two things. One, they had to refactor how long a month was. Yeah, Velikovsky got a whole chapter showing all this research. I'm going to cite it for you guys pretty soon because I'm working on Academy right now and I just pulled it out of Velikovsky's books. But they had to do two things. They had to figure out exactly how long a month was because it was no longer 30 days. They also had to figure out how many days were in the year. And it took over 50 to 60 years for them to actually add 5.25 days to every year. And it's all traced to an event involving the sun. But you don't ever hear uniformitarians talking about this. Nope, they want to talk about a rock, a theoretical rock that landed in a theoretical time period that ended a theoretical period called an ice age, which caused a theoretical flood called meltwater pulse 1b. Yeah, they're going to stack a theory on top of 3 more theories and try to pass it off as fact. So dumb. Told you it was going to be a rant, guys. Hey, Benny Riley, I haven't seen you in a while, man. How you doing, bud? I seen Vincent Lerman in the chat a lot lately. You've been around for a long time, bro. You should have had him wrench a while back. So when we abandon the uniformitarian nonsense and we just take things at face value and we study independent phenomena instead of allowing our authorities to tell us what we're seeing or what we're perceiving, telling us how to think, or giving us false models that take us down rabbit trails that never go anywhere. When we're left to our own devices, we find out pretty fast that, damn, there's something really unusual about the moon. It's too big to be where it's at, or it should have crashed into us a long time ago going by uniformitarian principles. But also, it's not reflecting sunlight. We've only been told it was. And it appears to act like it's trying to look like it's reflecting sunlight by the phases of the moon. But truth be told, moonlight has been measured. And it's a negative light. And it's cold. And it has nothing to do with sunlight. So it's a deteriorative illumination, not a solar illumination. But we find a lot of things out. We also find out that humans have never been to the moon. And the establishment hasn't really done a good job of hiding that. It's like they don't care. All the factual evidence for the manifests that show that there was no lighting equipment taken to the moon. Some of the Apollo investigators that were crying hoax in the 90s and stuff, they filed Freedom of Information Act deals, and all they wanted was the manifests, and they got them. But all they wanted was the manifest. We want a manifest of everything we're curious. We want to know everything that the astronauts took with them to the moon. Well, NASA put a manifest together and gave them a whole list of everything that the astronauts took up there, which they shouldn't have had to invent that. It should have already been available. But they gave it to these people, and these people noticed real quick and asked them. They said, hey, is this the whole manifest? This is everything. They said, oh, yeah, this is everything. There's no more to add to it and all that. So they said, okay. And then they wrote a book called Dark Moon. And in Dark Moon, you'll find out about the whole NASA hoax. There's whistleblowers in the book. It's a fantastic book. But you'll find out that They didn't take any lighting equipment at all to the moon. There was nothing they took to the moon that could explain the double shadows in a bunch of the pictures, as if somebody had set a light up over here, like a camera light. Never could explain it because they didn't take in the manifest. According to the manifest, no lighting equipment was taken to the moon. So anyway, you already know though. Anybody with half a brain by now knows we didn't go to the moon. It's just dumb. Also, uniformitarian model totally ignores. We've got over 50 old maps that show California as an island. Though we have many other maps and U.S. Geological Survey and U.S. Navy maps of the interior of California showing that very recently it was either a freshwater sea, the interior of California. You can still see the whole bowl. It's the whole valley. In satellite pictures are really compelling when you look at California, how it looks like the bottom of a bowl. And what's crazy about it is in the video that I did on California being an island in 600-year-old maps, I showed that even older maps that were Pacific-centric, not Atlantocentric, that shows the Americas on the left and California on the far left of the island as a island in the Pacific. No. The Pacific-centric maps. This means the Pacific Ocean is the center, and China and Asia are all on the left, and the Americas are all on the right. It's looking at the hemisphere from the other way. Those older maps even show California as an island. For those of you who haven't seen that, when my moderators put that video 6 months ago, please put the link to that video. But I also show the scientific reports in there, and I spend a lot of time in that video explaining and showing the distribution of Sequoia gigante, the Dawnwood pines, the Dawnwood firs, the bristlecone pines, the I forgot which ones are on the coast, the coastal redwood, the coastal redwoods. The distribution of all of these gigantic trees shows that they were all at the edge of a body of water. And that when the water drained out and left the valley in California dry, it says there's almost nothing of archaeological value in that entire area. Not like everywhere around it, which is high ground. And the distribution of these ancient 2,000 and 3,000-year-old Dawnwood, redwood, bristlecone pine trees in California, none of those trees would have been destroyed if that area was either flooded or if it was drained out, because those trees are all at greater, higher elevations, even the ones on the coast from the interior of California. So it's really amazing video when you look at all that. But uniformitarians they can't admit to recent cataclysms. That's why they don't talk about 3895 BC, 4000 BC. That's why they don't talk about 23rd century BC. That's why they don't talk about the Ogygian deluge, the Avellino event, 1700 BC. They don't talk about these other cataclysms in 522, which started the Dark Ages. They just barely cover these deals, but they don't really tell you the implications. The implications of every single one of these is this massive alteration of sample materials. All of your materials that you're measuring are affected every time these events occur. What it does is by ignoring all the cataclysms, you can say Göbekli Tepe is 8,000 BC. But once you take all the cataclysms into consideration, you have to abbreviate your carbon-14 dating over and over and over to account for each time there was an increase in the radioactive decay because of some type of event. So it abbreviates every time how closer and closer Göbekli Tepe gets to us today. Like I told you a year ago, just be patient. The archaeologists are going to keep on uncovering things to where they're not going to be able to deny that they effed up and that Göbekli Tepe and the other Tepe sites are not 8,000 BC. It's coming to that, guys. They just found a seal with writing on it, and that changes the dating right there, just like that. So anyway, that California was an island within the last 600, 700, 800 years. Yeah, that's big, but uniformitarians can't accept that. It's too much of a change. No, now it takes 16 million years to do that. That's what they're going to tell you. That's what we're going to tell you. So the same thing applies to all the maps prior to 1626 AD. We have a lot of maps from the 1500s of North America. We have a lot of maps from the 1600s of North America. Before 1626, which is a Phoenix year, there isn't a hint of the Great Lakes. After 1626, the Great Lakes are everywhere on the maps. Remember, it was pretty recently when all that ice appeared on Antarctica. We just recently came out of a vapor canopy event. When I say recently, I'm talking about within the last 1,000 years or so. So we have this crocodiles. It's not favorable to the uniformitarian model that crocodiles in 60 million year old strata are no different than crocodiles today. Yeah, that doesn't help uniformitarian natural selection, or it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter what model you buy into, punctuated equilibrium. Yeah, there's so many different models because every new discovery changes the scientific field. It changes it because they're wrong about everything. That's what science is. Let's throw a whole bunch of wrong stuff out there, and then maybe we'll roach up on something right every once in a while. That's what it is. It's just ridiculous. Sharks. No evolutionary development in hundreds of millions of years for the sharks. Horseshoe crabs. Same as, the 450 million year old Ordovician strata has horseshoe crabs anatomically correct to the horseshoe crabs we have today. How's that possible? I bet some of them are in 3D too. The coelacanth. You've heard of the coelacanth. It's an index fossil. Your parents and your grandparents were educated to believe that this nasty looking fish in salt water, this big old dinosaur looking fish called a coelacanth, was an index fossil. And anytime you found a coelacanth, you knew for a fact that this right here was 55 million year old strata. How do you know that? Because it's an index fossil. Well, what's an index fossil? An index fossil indexes what time period it was, because we already know when that fish died. You knew that fish died 55 million years ago. Yep, sure did. It's an index fossil. Circular reasoning is ridiculous, but this is everywhere in uniformitarian model. So once they say that a certain creature represents, and fossilization is supposed to be really rare, but apparently every period of time in the entire historical record had fossil petrification and fossil to give us all these models. So the coelacanth represents an index fossil. Well, an index fossil, actually, the coelacanth is measuring things 400 million years ago. That's the dating for the coelacanth, 400 million years ago. But we found some recently in fishermen in their nets. Then more were verified. I believe we found 5 coelacanths ever since the 1960s or 70s now. Yeah, index fossils representing 400 million years of history, unchanged by evolution and natural selection, and that is a fantastically long period of time. Swimming in your oceans today, the coelacanth. The ginkgo biloba, it's a tree unchanged in 200 million years. Scientists call it a living fossil. 200 million years, it's never changed. Still here with us. The nautilus, you've seen the nautilus. Cephalopods with a coiled shell. They've existed for 500 million years, and the fossils are beautiful. People polish them, use them as decorations and all that, and they're no different at all from the ammonites and the nautiluses of today. New Zealand has a reptile called the tuatara. Tuatara, it's a living fossil. traces its lineage back to the time of the dinosaur, 65-million-year-old lizard in New Zealand today, live and well. No transitional forms. It is the same as it was then, like the hagfish and lampreys. These are all primitive, jawless fish. We call them primitive, but they haven't evolved at all in 100 million years. It's ridiculous. Brachiopods, these two-shelled marine creatures, have a long fossil record going back to the 500 and 600 million year old Cambrian period, and they haven't evolved a bit. They're the same as they are. Jellyfish, some of the oldest creatures in the world, haven't evolved a bit. The jellyfish that we have in our oceans are identical to the 3D petrified jellyfish that we have found flash frozen all over the world. No transitional forms. That's what uniformitarians do. They practice exclusions. Why won't you address all these other deals? Because you can't. And when you do, you have to gaslight people into believing in all kinds of things that are untrue in order to pass off your gaslighting. It's just ridiculous. The suspension of disbelief required to believe in uniformitarianism, once you've learn this stuff, once you realize that there are other explanations for all these things that they have to ignore in order to promote their rocks falling from space, to end an ice age and create a flood scenario and push all these cataclysms so far back, it gets you to not look in local periods of time for explanations to the phenomena that we find in the ground, such as dinosaurs, dinosaur footprints, human footprints, all found on the surface easily, but human artifacts and human anatomical remains and skeletons 6, 7, and 800 feet underground. Explain that. You can't under the uniformitarian principles, but you can in Archaix, because Archaix is all about the entire history of the world is one of cataclysms, systemic resets that happen very, very fast. But it's all simulated. Whole populations are removed, whole populations are inserted. And life forms are nothing but programming, and they show absolutely no evolutionary programming, no natural coding. Instead of natural selection, let's call it natural coding. Oh yeah, they suffer. Oh yeah, it's we built a world over here. It's all computerized. It's a sophisticated simulation. It bridges the psyche with the simulation and makes it a more real experience. Yeah, we perfected that technology, but and we got, instead of natural selection, we got natural coding, because these digitized creations that we created in our deal, they slightly alter their coding over millions of years to become something else. Yeah. I'm gaslighting you now. So there are many topics. There are many topics, not just the uniformitarians, but even the first group, your mystical occultists, your Gaians, whatever. Everybody pointing their fingers, talking about there's no evidence for simulation theory. Well, there's a whole bunch of evidence. You're just not wanting to address it. You would prefer to practice exclusions. Well, you're doing the same thing the scientific world does. Law enforcement practices exclusions. What do you think DAs do? District attorneys are the best. District attorneys are the closest thing to scientists outside of science. District attorneys practice exclusions. What do? They got all this material right here, but they need this, and this right here, and they need to pull that out, give it to an intern, and tell them to put that in a narrative. This is our evidence. This guy's guilty. We'll put all this down. But look at all this they had to remove. They shelved that. We're going to put that aside, because that's not going to, not only does that not support us, but if this has gone through a little bit deeper, we may find out that this is untrue. But I'm trying to get home for supper, and I don't really care. And I think this guy's guilty for other things he's did, so it doesn't even matter. So let's just ramrod him through prosecution, and that's called practicing exclusions. And this is what district attorneys are masters at. But so are scientists. So we find that in order to gaslight us, it's like Graham Hancock did to us. He told us in the body of his book that there's just no evidence that the ancient Egyptians ever counted a year as 30 days. He said that knowing that 3 of the authors that he cited in his bibliography, in fact, did say that the Egyptians counted a year as 30 days. So there has to be deception involved in order to pass off an even greater deception. It's practicing the exclusions. And the exclusion practiced in Graham Hancock's case was the truth, that there really was evidence that said otherwise, but I'm going to tell you there wasn't, so you won't look. And you'll believe this rock fell from space and into the Ice Age and caused Meltwater Pulse 1b, and Atlantis was destroyed because that's where Plato put it 9,000 years before Solon. And yeah, it's just gaslighting. It's gaslighting on an epic level. And they have to take things that out of context, like the Sphinx, making a big deal about the Sphinx being water damaged. Well, under the uniformitarian model, it is a big deal because it wasn't tropical in that area to have done a lot of rain damage for, thousands and thousands of years before Egypt was a desert. But in order to put this model together, they have to invent a long period of time that the Sphinx is getting rained on. But we don't have that long period of time because the Sphinx wasn't built that far back. Egyptologists don't agree with that Younger Dryas. Yeah, establishment archaeologists don't agree with that. The Sphinx is probably 28th century BC to 26th century BC. It wouldn't be that old, but it looks old. But so does the creek in my backyard. And it's layered just like that because of water. Same thing. But in order to pass off that the Sphinx is as old as the Ice Age and that rainwater caused all this damage, they push it so far back to make it plausible, which is uniformitarian dating, Ice Age. When the truth is they have to ignore the historical record. And in the historical record, we find that Egypt's earliest name was the Raised Land. It was called the Raised Land because an earthquake brought the whole North African plate up. And if they would just do some homework and read Diodorus and Strabo, they would find out that only in recent history, in the last 4,000 years or so, did the Sahara Desert, which was formerly underwater, by an earthquake drain out. It's all in the historical record, but they don't put it together, or they don't want you to put it together. So the Sphinx wasn't damaged because it was rained on. It was heavily damaged for 2 reasons. One, it had no protection. The Great Pyramid was protected 2/3 the way up. What do you get to it at 2/3 the way up? Anybody can look a picture of the Great Pyramid and see that once you get 2/3 the way up, there is a line where it looks like a wave crest. And it's where different levels of seawater had been at different times. And above that, the stone is almost undamaged and much smoother. It's water damage on this is why the bottom of the pyramid is so deteriorated and damaged, just like the Sphinx. But it's not because the ocean flooded and Mediterranean came up, because that have flooded almost the entire world. That's not what happened. The entire North African plate sank 300 feet in an earthquake in 2239 BC. 340 years later, when Menes comes charging in on Sumeria with a Sumerian fleet and lands in North Africa, which is basically empty. When Menes landed, Menes is Anum of Sumer. We've gone through this on my channel. Menes is from right to left, and Anum is from left to right. It is the exact same name. One is Sumerian, and one is the Greek representation of the first king of Egypt, King Menes. So Anum of Sumer comes over by a fleet, 1899 BC, in the 340th year after the Great Flood. There's an earthquake, and that earthquake brings the North African plate up and creates the 9 bows, the rivers that come off of the delta. And the breach is right there at the Great Pyramid where the 9 bows branch off. And after 340 years underneath the Mediterranean, The Sphinx was heavily damaged by saltwater currents for a long time. There has always been a high saline content in the lower portions of the Great Pyramid. The Muslims even said they had to chisel all the salt crystals out of the inside of the passage in order to free enough space for their crawl through. So this is this is widely known about the Great Pyramid, but they have to ignore all that. They have to ignore the fact that there's other explanations for the water damage on the Sphinx. They have to ignore all that and create this BS that got rained on for 10,000 years. And that it happened 12,000 years ago because that's when the climate in Egypt wasn't desert. They have to ignore the fact that all the pyramids in Egypt are in the north. And 400 miles to the south is the Egypt that Hollywood promotes. The Valley of the Kings, Tutankhamun, the great temples of Waset and Thebes and Karnak and Abydos, the Assyrian, all that's down in southern Egypt. 400 miles to the north are the pyramids. Yeah, man. Hollywood mixes them all together. Encyclopedias mix them together. Go read a National Geographic and flip through the pages, and they may be talking about the Temple of Karnak and the entire deal, but they're going to make sure they put pyramids in the distance. Going to do it every time. They want you to associate. In the ancient world, 400 and 450 miles was a world away. Empires were separated by that distance. It's huge. But they've got to ignore all that. Just like in trying to promote that the Sphinx was the constellation Leo at the vernal equinox facing east, Graham Hancock made a critical mistake. And I don't know if it was a mistake or if he just lied. But the Sphinx can't represent Leo because the ancient Egyptians didn't know a Leo. The vernal equinox and the constellation that was there at 10,500 BC to the Egyptians, if Egypt even existed that far back, which it doesn't. But even if it did, it wouldn't have been Leo to the Egyptians. They didn't know a lion constellation at that time. That was very recent during the Greek contact. To the Egyptians, that was the sickle. And that big old giant statue in front of the Great Pyramid don't look like no sickle to me. Big critical mistake on Hancock's part, assuming that the age of Leo and age of Gemini and age of Cancer was a real thing when it wasn't. All that is made up very recently. Yeah, the zodiacs were horoscopic. They only became associated to measuring distances, vast ages in time with the 1800s, with but prior to the Golden Dawn was Theosophical Society and Helena Blavatsky. Nobody measured ages in history using the zodiac until then in the 1800s. Just wasn't known. But yeah, that was a critical mistake on Hancock's part. Sphinx would have never been Leo. They got to ignore a bunch of stuff about Göbekli Tepe. They've got to ignore the buckets on that pillar. They got to ignore the 3D art and how it matches that of Easter Island, the bird cult associations to Easter Island. They had the Kiva-style architecture that's matched in ancient sites in the 26th century all over the world. The anthropomorphic statues with the folded fingers that match the ones at Tiwanaku and at Easter Island, all dated after 2600 BC. They have to ignore all these amazing associations Göbekli Tepe has to all these other sites that date 2600 BC, not 8000 BC. We got 5,400 years of history here that's just invented. Doesn't even make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. So 2600 BC, they're going to find, the more they find about Göbekli Tepe, like the seal they just found with the writing on it, the more they find, the more it's going to be clearer and clearer. There's even a boar. Just recently, a badass 3D boar a statue was found in China. And the Chinese date it to the 26th century BC. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's identical to the boar with the tusk. Doesn't look any different than the boar with the tusk you see at Göbekli Tepe. I'm putting a whole list together. There's so many things. There's so many things about Göbekli Tepe. Like I told you a year ago, just wait. They're going to keep excavating. They're going to keep finding things, and it's going to become very, very obvious that they're going to have to amend their dating pretty soon. Yeah, that Kiva style architecture is very unique, only after the 26th century BC. So, also another thing that's ignored a lot, not by the uniformitarians, but ignored in the truther community, is like the ancient aliens guys. They love to promote about the gods of ancient text and all that were all extraterrestrials and aliens. But you know what? We have the Teraphim. We have the actual statues. We've got the Apkallu reliefs and statues. And we see that if these are aliens, then they're just human. They've got beards. They're human. But, I mean, you're calling them gods and ancient aliens and all that. That's fine. But if you go by the testimony of the ones who are actually making physical representations of their kings and gods, well, they were just making humans. Yeah, you'll on the historical record and in the archaeological record, the gods are human. Practicing exclusions involves not mentioning how ancient cultures factored time. This is where Atlantis and Randall Carlson get that Atlantis dating so bad. Not factoring how they do time. This is how Billy Carson and Zechariah Sitchin and all these ancient aliens guys got the Anunnaki dating off so bad. Trying to count that 432,000 as years instead of days. Turnings of the stars, which is just a 1,200-year period. This too is practicing exclusions. Not telling people about the old world only having 360 days and that 365 days is the result of a cataclysm. That's practicing exclusion. That's a big exclusion, huge exclusion. Not considering the fact that our oldest epics and religious compositions are actually post-reset compositions after the fact, after a world reset, after a world destruction, these ancient writings first appear. You know, this means that the frames of reference are going to be more primitive than the cultures that were eradicated. This is why our mythologies and our traditions come down to us almost cartoonish and comical, and it's because the resets are so perfect and systemic that most of the survivors are illiterate, or there's no way to write. There's no medium anymore. Civilization has ended. So things are preserved in the memory, but things that are preserved in the memory are never translated to the next generation with accuracy. It's like Chinese whispers. So the thousands of people telling stories in one generation, those stories are received by a subsequent generation with that subsequent generation's frames of reference. And the story changes. And you no longer get heroes and veterans and EMS techs and firemen, and you no longer get law enforcement and military, and you don't get this hero talk anymore. Now you get Lugals and Lugolums and Titans and giants, and you get all this stuff being relayed over and over as the story is told. And then once a culture, 200 or 300 years after a reset, a culture gets sedentary again. Agriculture's picked up. People are able to relax and they're not fighting hand to mouth for food. And once they begin building settlements that become cities, people learn, script. Then you have your more educated and your more imaginative come together, and they begin to write traditional epics and religious writings and historical texts. And you have chronological material, and people are comparing notes all over the world. And it takes about 500 years for cultures to come into enough contact with each other and exchange in knowledge and information that a general idea of the history of the world before the cataclysm is put together. And then 500 and 600 years after that, that history is refined more and more as more memories come in from other people, as people apply Occam's razor, as actual artifacts are found in Archaix. And then, 2,000 years after a full systemic reset, which is about time for another reset, everything's put together. It's a computer age. Everything's technologically advanced. People are absolutely think guys like me talking about this cycle are out of our mind and we're nuts, and they have no idea how close we are to the next one. Practicing exclusions causes us to accept blatant lies, like the Great Wall of China. Roman construction, employing the Roman mile, the Roman foot, the width of the road being 16 Roman feet, it defies us. It's the Amazon of the ancient world, but that's not what we're calling it. Yes, the Chinese worked on it, but that's about it. The Roman engineers designed that. Accepting that the Shroud of Turin is that of Jesus is also gaslighting, but from a Christian perspective, because they have to practice exclusions. They have to ignore all the information that science has produced, showing that is not a shroud of Jesus, but of someone who has recently come back from the Crusades. And at the time, the Crusades were being fought by Norman knights. The dude on the Turin shroud looks just like a Norman knight. So there's just so many. In order to pass so many things off, like the Jewish calendar actually being ancient, you have to practice exclusions. That there was no, that there was a reset in the 1800s, like a lot of people, there's a lot of people on social media trying to pass off that, oh man, there was some type of badass reset, and they tie the world fairs to it and tie Tartaria to it and try to squeeze flamenco in there, and they some of them put together a compelling case. I've never seen a compelling case, and in fact I have 2 videos showing why I believe that there was no reset in the 1800s. I show why, what the incubators were about, why the population explosion happened. And I actually show photos of the engineering of the day, because people say that it was impossible for us to do these things, but we've got photos of us doing those things in the 1800s. So I'm just, no reset in the 1800s. In order to assert that there was, you have to practice some pretty heavy exclusions I show in my videos. But to promote that ancient aliens are real, you have to practice exclusions, such as ignoring all the Archaix information about the Shar being a day and not a year. Ignore all the Archaix data on the alien abduction phenomenon actually being an orb phenomenon. Totally changes the context. Promote the Galactic Federation, you have to practice a lot of exclusions. And Billy Carson practiced a major exclusion when he tried to pass off his dumbass book on the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, trying to pass that off as history. What exclusion did he practice? He just conveniently forgot to tell his readership that the story is fake and it comes from 1920s when D'Oreal invented it. But yeah, it's crazy, man. You got those who promote Judeo-Christianity, they have to practice the exclusions of what the text actually says. And what I mean is the faith is built upon things that are cherry-picked. But if you read the Bible at face value, you will find out that it is a composition of both good and evil, not one of the other. It's like a huge duality protocol. We have to practice exclusions just to believe the Egyptologists when they try to tell us the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built by Egyptians for a tomb for Cheops. It's a lot of exclusions you have to practice to believe that one. So there's so many concepts out there that in order to believe them, we have to negate many other things that we have also found to be true. And the danger The danger with hyper-intellectualism is the fact that with the uniformitarian structure that we have in our educational systems, it promotes compartmentalization. It does not smile upon multidisciplinary approaches to any phenomena. Never has. So today, scientists are pretty much pigeonholed into whatever their fields of specialty are. They're pigeonholed into that. And this is what was so offensive about Charles Fort. This is what was so offensive about William Corliss and especially Immanuel Velikovsky. This is why these men were demonized, because they never claimed expertise in any one field, and they just studied it all. And this is how they were able to put together some fantastic material. But you can't get that. In the truth community now, man, I don't know anybody else who's doing that. The multidisciplinary approach is the only approach, because there cannot be any exclusions. Everything must fit. It's got to fit. So I kind of did this video by inspiration only of, people drawn to my attention. Gigi Young. I got nothing against her, but she did kind of go off about this is not a simulation. And you know what? In Archaix, that's what this whole channel is about. Showing you from the historical record that we are indeed inside a mathematical construct. And I believe I've made my case over and over and over, and I'm not done because I got 500 videos left in me. But there's people out there shooting their darts. But if you're going to shoot your darts, you need to be honest. In order to say what you say, you have to practice exclusions. And practicing exclusions is not how you get to the bottom of a matter at all. In Archaix, we're not going to practice. We're going to take everything into consideration, and we're going to show why it's either true or not true, because everything must fit. But guys, it's time for me to eat. I got me a good one. I got somebody. Oh, dear old Dad. I ain't gonna wait on Dad, but I'm about to get started on that. I'm gonna read some of this C.S. Lewis. I'm going to try out this Canadian whiskey. I never get drunk. I don't get drunk. I'm totally against it. But I will drink a couple shots. Read the C.S. Lewis book. My rant is out of the way. Tomorrow I'll be paying attention to the NFL games because we're killing it in Cypher. And as I'm listening to the games, I'm also going to be working on Archaix Academy. I told you, I made a promise. By the end of the month, I will be done with Academy. It's done. Before 2026, I want Academy. You can download every single deal. And those of you who have already purchased Academy or the drives, we're going to upload the whole deal all over again. Even if you've already received the original 26 on a drive, we're going to use new drives and upload all 75 courses with all their stuff on one single drive and mail it out to you, because that's how we're going to be selling it too. It'll be in the Archaix Shopify store. But this is 75 courses that will educate you on the history of the world far better than any education you're going to get anywhere else. This is my blood, sweat, and tears of 25 years of data mining and research. This is the subject matter of hundreds of videos on YouTube turned into these deals. And this is not rehashed material from my 11 or 12 books. Now, this Archaix Academy is the real deal. It's the real deal. But I'm getting it done. I've put everything aside this month, but just YouTube videos and getting this Academy done. So I have it's not the same one. The little AI intro you just saw, I got a different one. Let me show you that one. We could do that. Oh, we got a lot of new merch too. If you haven't seen the new Archaix calendars, badass shirts. I'm jealous. I don't have one yet. Badass Archaix underground. Even if you're not in the underground with us. If you're not in the underground with us, that's fine. You can still order the merch. But we got badass Archaix underground hoodies and shirts. I like them. I'm waiting on mine. Big John, if you're listening. Cheryl, if you're listening, I'm waiting on my shirt. Let's see. Let me find that AI. Let's go to live video clips. I think I'll play this one. All right. I'm all in the wrong place. Damn it. What am I doing? Video file. All right. Finally. Where am I? I'm having all kinds of issues trying to check out. All right. Love you guys.
We've run all the simulations, and the output always shows that Graham, Randall, Jimmy, and Billy are full of it.
You know, I'm not very smart, but I thought Jimmy was smarter than that.
Here is Texas, we make folks put up or shut up. It's a Southern thing. Jason is just asking for you to defend yourself. Be a man.
It's so exciting. One of these guys is going to take the bait, and Jason is going to humiliate them with data. We are going to see Jason destroy one of these guys.
A few call-outs was interesting, but now this situation has a lot of people's attention. Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, Billy Carson, Jimmy Corsetti, the Ancient Aliens crew, and the many who produce for Gaia, and no one will debate Jason. Archaix must be the truth.
Just call it for what it is. Ancient aliens, Gaia, ancient apocalypse, bright insight, forbidden knowledge. It's all Hollywood. Fake as a doll being able to talk.
Holy crap. First Billy and now Jimmy?
Man, I don't know nothing about all this whack stuff, but I'm just enjoying the show.
Sometimes you have to pay attention. A strategist sees a checkmate coming. Don't make the mistake of doubling down, because the public will never forgive you after you were given a chance to admit your error.
I'm sorry, we've run ops on Jason, blocked his accounts, throttled down his likes, unsubbed his followers over and over, removed a lot of his posts, and even messed with his bandwidth, and still nothing has slowed down his momentum.
Listen, I don't read books, but neither does Jimmy or Billy, and Hancock has other people write his books. But I listen to Archaix, and I can hear the truth because he's always making sense and telling me where the knowledge comes from.
Is so dumb. Hancock and Randall are so old, and Billy and Jimmy just hating because Jason is hot. So dumb, it's not even about Atlantis.
You mean to tell me that the original discoverers of the Rachette structure even said it wasn't Atlantis after they went there and had a look?
Jason is a true thriller of information. He has shown these guys that they can just beat it. Archaix for the win.
Oh my God, guys, Men in Black was just a movie. You guys took it to the next level, and now you're running from Archaix to save your bank accounts?
I can't believe this. Jimmy, I looked up to you. My next song was going to be about Atlantis in the Sahara. I was going to flow, dude.
Archaix has gone way beyond what is necessary to prove that these guys are all putting out some real, easily disproven information, and that they have made fortunes doing it. Jason has shown us who values the dollar and who values the truth.
So I wanted to endorse Archaix, but Jason told me cram it. He apparently hates politicians. Still, break free or die trying, guys.
There is no way I would want to be one of these guys. I listened to Jason freestyle historical facts in Las Vegas like he had lived back then. A freaking time traveler.
This whole situation raises the question of accountability. These guys have made millions off of telling the public incorrect information that they now refuse to answer for. We may need to look into this.
Oh, you guys get it all wrong. It means make Archaix great again. That's MAGA. Errants are the Archaix nation.
There is no way in hell someone is going to use my past against me because they don't want to deal with me right now. That shit's weak.
Atlantis, dated to the Ice Age, is as dumb as thinking a guy who invents computer viruses can make vaccines.
This isn't going away. Jason's not going to win because he's smarter. He's going to win because you're being dumb. Like me.
Being a crusader for the truth isn't being a bully. Only someone trying to hide something is going to gaslight you into hating on Jason.
There is no stopping Archaix. Gaia, Ancient Aliens, Forbidden Knowledge of Billy, Bright Insight of Jimmy, Ancient Apocalypse of Hancock. I'm telling you, they aren't ready.
Dudes, What are you going to do when Jason has 500,000 followers? You already can't contain this.